Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Prashant. How are you?
I am fine, thank you, sir. How are you, sir?
Getting along? I'm alive. Prashant, do you have a copy of your syllabus?
Yes, sir.
Is it there with you right now?
Yes, sir.
What is the next one? Indian political thought, no? In this unit only?
Yes, sir. Western and Indian political thought comparison.
Mm, that is the next one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That we'll do fast because technically there is no such thing as Indian political thought. If we look at the ancient period, what we find is mainly cosmological thinking. So there's no political thought, so to speak. But we'll do that. And after that, what is there in the second unit?
Ancient and medieval political thought. In that first one, Plato, theory of justice and ideal state. Second one, Aristotle, classification of government, theory of revolution and
Hmm.
slavery. Next, Manu, Dharma and Varna. Next, Kautilya, Saptanga theory, Mandala theory. Next, Thomas Aquinas, theory of law.
This is a hodgepodge. I really don't know who made the syllabus. Anyway, let us see. So you have Manu and Kautilya. You
Yes,
don't
sir.
have Buddha.
No, sir, we don't have Buddha.
Mm, okay. And are there Indians again in modern Indian, modern political thought?
No, sir. Only in first unit we have Indian political thought comparison.
Hmm.
And next we don't have anything.
No,
In third chapter we have,
second unit you said no, Kautilya and
no, no, yes, sir, only those two. Next, Thomas Aquinas,
yeah,
Aquinas,
yeah, I
theory of law.
know. Then what else is there?
Nothing,
What is
sir,
the
completed second unit.
third unit is Machiavelli?
Early modern Western political thought, church-state controversy, Nicholas Machiavelli.
Mm, okay, and fourth unit is social contractualists.
Yes, sir. Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Rousseau.
And fifth is utilitarians, Bentham and Mill.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, there are two of you, so let's get going. Two is good enough. For me, even one is good enough actually. So let's get going.
Sir, actually, I have a small doubt.
Yeah, please ask.
How can we understand the word radical? I mean, radicalism, radicalists. Is it linked with violence, sir, or
No,
something
no,
else?
no, 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 no. Radical is not at all linked with violence. Okay. Anything which is radical is that which is doing something extremely unusual. Okay, that is what you will mean by radical. You will say this is radically different. Okay, so when you say something is radically different, what you are saying is that the differences are not minor differences, but the differences are major and that they are many. That's what it means. Okay, so when you say something is radical, what you actually mean is something which is so different that people didn't even think about it. That's how it started, right? For example, I'll tell you, there is a guitarist whom I admire a lot, and he's considered to be a radical guitarist. Why? Because he, when a song is written, it is written on a scale. Okay, scales have different names in Western music. So here you have a scale which is on this thing. Let us say what is called a blues scale. On a blues scale, if you play a guitar solo, okay, then you are playing a scale which is expected to be played on that blues scale. But instead of playing a blues scale on the guitar, which has a thing which is on a song rather, which is on a blues scale, if you play a Phrygian scale, then that is called radical, because nobody plays like that. But there is this guitarist, Richie Blackmore, who does things like that. So he's called a very radical guitarist because he does not stick to established protocols. And he does something which nobody expects a musician to do. So he's called radical. Now, when you ask me about this whole violence thing, that has come up in India, specifically more so in the Telangana region, because of the existence of what was once a very powerful movement, which is no longer a powerful movement. It is still there. It was called the Radical Students Union. And this Radical Students Union is, just a second. Yeah, Kavya, I'm in a class. Just call me at 12:40, okay? I'll call you. I have with you at 1 o'clock. Yeah, yeah, right. Sorry about this. Yeah, so you had the communist movement. Among the communists, you had people who were very, very far left, in the sense that they took recourse to certain kind of violence. They took recourse to declaring some kind of a war, not as war between nations, but war on the society, which was creating inequalities. So that thing came to be called radicalism. Okay, and they called themselves the Radical Students Union, RSU. George Reddy, Jampala, these were the people who were associated with that. And they took recourse to violence. And you'll also see that at one time there was what was called the CPIML, Marxist-Leninist movements which came into being in the Naxalbari area of Bihar and Bengal, around that this thing. So you will see the Naxalites, they are actually not Naxalites. It's Naxalbari, that place. So since that movement started there, they came to be called Naxalites. So the Naxalites uh, essentially said, we will fight through violence. Okay, they said we will fight through violence, and that they call themselves CPIML, Marxist Leninist. There was already one party which was the CPI that came into being in 1925. It split in 1964 and became the CPI and the CPIM. M stood for Marxist, and in 69 you had CPIML, Marxist Leninist. These people are commonly referred to as Naxalites, and the RSU owed its what should I say, its existence and had its allegiance to the CPIML groups. In Telangana, there were several groups. The CPIML was not one party. There was a Chandrapulla Reddy faction. But the biggest faction was that which was called the People's War Group, PWG. Now, somewhere around the 90s, early 90s, after a lot of deliberation, all these groups decided to come together and call themselves the Maoists. Okay, which is now the CPI Maoists. The erstwhile Naxalites are now called the Maoists. The government of India, for some strange reason, has given a diktat that these people should no longer be referred to as Naxalites. They should be referred to as Maoists. Now, these people are called radical because they don't mind uh, indulging in violence. So they went to an extreme form of communism. Only in that context does radical mean violence. Okay, but it does not mean violence in any other context. Radical means something which is very different from what we are used to, something which is extremely unusual, something which is extremely sometimes creative. All those things can be radical. Okay, all those things can be radical. When you drift away from the well-trodden path and do something different, and the different need not be bad, it can be very good, it can be very creative, like I said, it can be explorative of new things, that will become radical. So it's not violence at all, except in this particular sense of Maoism, Naxalbari movement, and the Radical Students Union movement, which were all based in violence. The others are not, the other usages of it are not at all violent. Okay, you will say, for example, when I teach Plato, I will tell you that Plato was a radical thinker for his time because he believed in the equality of the sexes, which means he saw women and men as equal. And there is no reference to slavery in Plato. all other Greek thinkers had some reference to some kind of slavery, but in Plato there is no reference to slavery. So he's a radical thinker. Okay, or when you talk about somebody like Anaximander, you say he's radical, because till then people were thinking that Earth is resting somewhere. He said, no, the Earth is a cylinder spinning on its own axis, and this is, pre-Socratic times. So he was radical for his time. So that is how you use radical. It does not mean violent at all. Only in this particular instance which I gave you, there it means violent. Otherwise, it's not. Does it clear your doubt?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Sir,
Mm.
oh, sorry, sir. Good
No,
afternoon, sir.
don't be sorry. It's okay.
Sir, is that Bhagat Singh belongs to violence or radical, sir?
Bhagat Singh did believe in violence, and given the fact that Bhagat Singh was violent at a time when India was waging a political struggle based in non-violence, you can say he was radical. Okay, but struggles for independence based in violence are not new. In fact, in most countries, people fought for independence. India is a shining example of a country that attained its freedom without taking recourse to violence. So, in fact, that is radical. The Indian freedom movement, if you compare it with other freedom movements, it is very radical, because we got our freedom without going to war, without taking up arms. So Bhagat Singh believed in violence, so he was violent. But I wouldn't really say he was radical, because there are so many people who believed that violence was the only way, including Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who was once a part of the Congress. He was somebody who was very concerned. I saw a letter, somebody sent this letter, which he had written to Jawaharlal Nehru, in which he says, I'm worried about Mahatma Gandhi's health. Okay, but he disagreed with the Congress, and he set up his own Indian National Army, the Azad Hind Fauj, as it was called. And so Bhagat Singh was not the only person who believed in violence. There was a lot of people who believed in violence. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose being a prime example of that. So in India, perhaps we should say that our freedom movement, based in peaceful non-cooperation, civil disobedience, that was very radical for its time, because everywhere else wars were being fought. People were taking up arms. In India, people didn't take up arms. So that was radical here. So it can change with context. Okay, Rakesh, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any more questions? I would like it if you ask questions, because it makes me feel that I am actually making some contribution. Otherwise, I just feel like just talking and going away. Yes, Prashant.
No, sir. Very clear, sir. Today's doubt. I mean, I got much clarity.
Got clarity?
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Prashant. See, this is an
Thank you,
open thing. You can stop me. Okay, you can put up a hand. I think you know that, right? You can put up a hand, or you simply unmute and say, sir, and stop me if you have a doubt anywhere. All right. So don't pile up your doubts. Clear them as we go along. Okay, clear them as we go along. And now I am putting these lectures up on YouTube. You must have seen, now I have made them public. You don't even need to hit the link in order to access the lectures. All you need to do is type YouTube AV Satish Chandra and it'll take you to my channel. And on my channel, go to videos. In the videos, you'll find the lectures. All lectures I'm uploading on YouTube. You can watch it if you want, and if you have some questions after watching it again, you can ask me. I'll be very happy to clarify your doubts. I actually like an interactive session. I get the feeling that we are, otherwise it's like a monologue. I'm just sitting and talking. All right. So please feel free to ask doubts. Asking doubts is your right. It is your right. And if you think that I am saying something which is not what you believe in, you can tell me that also. And I will try to see if I am right or if you are right. We can find that also out. Okay. Knowledge grows when people interact. One way kind of a thing, knowledge doesn't grow. Any more? So shall we just go? Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If you have a doubt, please stop. No problem. You can stop me. I have no problem with that at all. Yeah, so let's finish off this vocabulary of political philosophy, constructing a political reality through the choice of language. So we started with Heidegger here, and I told you he went into destruct because he said, you know, knowledge is caught in verbiage, in words. So destroy a text, destruct in German. In this thing, he meant destroy a text and uh, try to see what the hidden meanings are. And later on, I started talking to you about Michel Foucault. And while I was talking about Foucault, I told you he calls his method the archaeology of knowledge. And archaeology, like I told you, is, where you dig things and expose what is hidden underneath. I told you excavation. Archaeology relies on excavation. Excavation is digging the layers out. That is how Mohenjo-daro and Harappa came out into the open. Pompeii came out into the open. The Mayan and Zoque civilizations of the Central American region came out into the open. It is through digging. Okay. So he says that you have to do an archaeology, and I told you here that Foucault was somebody who believed that an author is a functional figure. Okay, an author is a functional figure. I told you that this came from his very famous lecture in 1969 at the Collège de France, where he asked this question: what is an author? Not who is an author, what is an author? In which he claimed that every author represents an ideology. Okay, because everybody does not think alike, everybody has different points of view. Okay, and an author writes a text from a point of view which is his, or something which might have existed before him, and he supports it. And in doing so, what he does is that he looks at particular ideas from the point of view that he chooses to look at it from. Okay, so for him, this functional figure is also an ideological, is also an ideological, no, what should I say? The appropriate word for that would be an ideologue, let's just call him an ideologue, who tells the story from the point of view of the idea that he supports. Okay, I gave you examples. Or if you read Ambedkar, for instance, now Ambedkar came from the depressed sections of society, and in his debates with Gandhi, he said, what do the depressed and oppressed sections of society have to gain if India gains independence? Because we did not live an independent life. He calls them minorities. You say, at the age of 18, you stop being a minor and you become a major. When you become a major, that means you can take decisions for yourself. Okay, but below that you're called a minor. So he called these people minorities. Minorities are people who are not allowed to take decisions on their own. They were oppressed, and therefore they were also a depressed section of society. And he said, if we gain independence, then we go back to upper caste dominance, and there is no improvement whatsoever in the situation of the people who belong to the oppressed sections. And it is because of that Pune Pact between Mahatma Gandhi, where he said, don't fracture the independence movement. Mahatma Gandhi made this request to Ambedkar. He said, your fears about what will happen to the oppressed, we can address them. And that is how the reservation system came into being. So if you read Ambedkar, Ambedkar is writing from a certain point of view. That is the kind of thing that Foucault says, that an author is one who is a functional figure and at the same time an ideologue, somebody who is focusing on certain aspects. In creating that ideological framework, he's focusing on certain aspects and he's not focusing on other aspects. I'm not saying this with reference to Ambedkar. In the case of Ambedkar, it is black and white. It is very easy. But there are other cases where you can see that this focus is not black and white. So authors sometimes cleverly use facts, or they use events from history, very cleverly they use, in order to further their own ideology or the ideology that they believe in. So that kind of a thing is what Foucault is talking about, and this is a part of his larger project of archaeology. So he says, when you're doing the excavation of a text, excavation of texts, then you also have to consider the fact that the author is somebody who basically is not neutral. He's not writing from a point of view where he's not taking any stand. He is taking a stand. Sometimes it is very clear, like in the case of Ambedkar. In many instances, it is not very clear. Okay. For example, it is not very clear in the case of John Locke, or in the case of Jeremy Bentham. So we'll be dealing with them. So that's not a problem. So he is saying when you're doing this archaeology, you must essentially consider the fact that the author is not just an author, he's a functional figure who uses information selectively. Selectively, because no author can use all the information in the world. He uses information selectively, basically to make his own point. And I had told you, if you remember, that I had a discussion with Professor Neera Chandok of the Delhi University, where I told her that you first have had a conclusion, and what you have done is you have taken a number of instances from Indian history to which are convenient for that conclusion. So your writing of that book on civil society didn't begin as an exploratory work. You already had a certain idea and you only took examples which are convenient to you. And I told her I can basically take an equal number of counter examples and make a counter presentation and say that your idea of civil society is completely wrong. Okay, so this is something that happened between me and her. Great lady. She took the criticism. She took the criticism very well. And I later on told her I might have come too strongly at you, but that is not what I meant. So she said, no, it's okay. I agree with what you're doing. So I have respect for that lady. Now, so I told you Foucault was basically talking against Roland Barthes, R-A-L-O-N-D, Roland B-A-R-T-H-E-S Barthes, who talked about the death of an author. Okay, in which case where Barth's argument is when you write a book and put it out in the public, you are no longer in control of it. The author is in control of the book as long as he holds the book. The moment you put the book out in the market, when people are buying and reading it, they will draw various different conclusions which come from their own thing. I gave you a couple of instances from music. I'm not going to go back into that. Where, you know, somebody writes about someone and you can interpret that as not that someone that the author had in mind, but somebody that you have in mind. So once the book is out or a piece of music is out, then it is up to the reader. It becomes the property of the reader. It is not the property of the author. Okay, I gave you the instance of Ludwig Wittgenstein, and I told you Wittgenstein wrote Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus in 1925, and he claimed that every particular word has one empirical referent. And later on, he realized he was wrong because words get meanings in different cultures. The same language, the way we use English is not the way the British use English. It is not the way the Americans use English. And English that we use is very much our language. It's not a foreign language for us. It never was, by the way, because it's an Indo-European language. So it's very much a part of our own culture. And our English is very different from those. For example, what do you say for when a film or a book is coming into the market? We say book release, okay? Or we say a film release, it's being released, right? But that's not what the British say. The British say that it is inauguration, inauguration of a book, inauguration of a film, not release. And our political leaders, when they are taking an oath, we call it a swearing in ceremony. Okay? If the president has to be sworn in, he's done by a judicial officer. If a prime minister has to be sworn in, he's made to swear, take the oath of office by the president. But in America, they don't say swearing in. It is installation of the president. When a new president takes over, they basically call it installation. Okay, and that is why there was a WhatsApp forward. I don't know if you got it. It says Trump being deinstalled. Please wait. Uninstalled. Please wait. That is because they call it installation. So see, the same language is used in different ways. And that is why in his next book, Philosophical Investigations, Wittgenstein said I was completely wrong in my first book. And many a time, there are words which don't even have empirical reference. All right. So that is what led to somebody like Jacques Derrida. Jacques Derrida is closer to Foucault than he is to Roland Barthes, because Barthes said it's no longer your property. And he also said that an author doesn't always have a clear mind. He doesn't always have a clear mind when he's writing out his ideas. There could be inner conflicts. Those conflicts could be unresolved and they can come out unresolved, making it more and more open to the people to actually interpret it to the way in which they interpret it. Okay, it is if you're reading something that came out of France and is located in French culture and you read it here, then we see it very differently, because our culture is not the culture of France. Okay, so what he says therefore is it is the reader who becomes more important. But Foucault makes a triangle. It is the author, the text, and the reader. All these three, if you see that as a triangle, it is in this triangle that you have to do archaeology. You have to excavate ideas. Why is an author saying these things? So people believe that what is an author is a response to the death of an author, which was a small essay written by another Frenchman, Roland Barthes. Now, a third Frenchman who goes by the name of Jacques Derrida, Jacques, but pronounced Jacques Derrida, Derrida. The French don't say de, they say the. Derrida. So Jacques Derrida, he is closer to Foucault, but his main inspiration is Heidegger. Okay, Heidegger said destruct, which is destroy. Okay, Derrida found it too violent. That word destruct, he said, is absolutely violent. So let's use something which is a little more palatable, not so violent as destruct. So he used deconstruct. So there he is very much with Foucault. He's very much with Martin Heidegger. What he is saying is a book hides ideas. He's saying the same thing that Heidegger says and Foucault says. Foucault says archaeology, but this man says no, there's no archaeology. You have to deconstruct, which is disassemble the book, the ideas in the book. Because it is through the process of deconstruction that we actually can get to the idea of what is written in a book and why a certain kind of language has been used by a particular author. That is what we find in Derrida. He calls it deconstruction. Now, tomorrow, the time is getting over. This has to finish. Tomorrow, when I meet you, I'm going to do deconstruction of Derrida, and Hans Gadamer, who has a similar idea. Hans Gadamer basically calls it a reconstruction. And the funny thing is, both of them say a text offers infinite possibilities of deconstruction, if you're Derrida, and infinite possibilities of reconstruction of meaning, that is